Hey guys, welcome back to Generation Wealth. We are doing something new. I told you on just a few podcast episodes ago that we're going to be trying some different things on the show as we drop out more content. So this is going to be a little mini episode. We don't really have it labeled of what we're going to call it. We may call it like coffee, candy, there's a play off there. We might do like money Mondays. I don't know, maybe wine, wealth. We'll see. I might just want a reason to drink wine on a Wednesday, maybe. But whatever we're going to call it, this is like our first little test. We'd love to see what you guys think. Give us your feedback. Put it on Instagram. Tag me. Let me know if you like these or not, or if you'd rather us go back to what we normally do, interviews and more long format. But what this is actually today's episode is all about what everyone's been hearing about in the business space. And I just want to preface this by, if you're new in business or you're not quite yet in business, I love to elevate the conversation around money and business. I love to be able to expand your knowledge, even when you don't quite know maybe what I'm talking about, so that you just know that there's another level to learn. And so I think it's important to talk about these conversations that are happening in the news and are, just very relevant for today in 2023 and what's going on in the markets. So I wanted to share this. I was actually just on TD Ameritrade, had a great conversation with Nicole. She was actually on the NASDAQ floor. And as you may or may not know, the NASDAQ is actually down overall, right? Mainly tech stocks. And this all started basically in the fourth quarter of 2022 when Mark Zuckerberg came out and said that Meta was declaring 2023 their year of efficiency. And really that was all that Wall Street needed to hear, because then it basically gave everyone else permission to do what Meta just did. And so in the last quarter of last year, they cut 13% of their workforce, about 11,000 jobs. And so it's not surprising that shortly after, Amazon cut, something like 10,000 jobs. And Dell just recently cut about 6% of their workforce, which is around 6,000 jobs. And so it just started to snowball from there. We have Ford jumping on. We've got Google jumping on board. Right now, everyone is saying this year of efficiency, which just basically means that they're going to streamline expenses and reduce costs, mainly stating that they have seen lower quarters of the year than they did 2020, 2021, and part of 2022. But I started to really peel back, what is this really about? And when you think about it, it kind of all comes down to common sense. Like, we can't as a country print trillions of dollars and give it out to business owners through PPP money, which is the payroll protection. We can't print it out and give it away for ERC credits, which was the earned retention credits for business owners to keep employees. Then all of a sudden they go away. It's not pretty shocking that then all of these major companies that got incentivized with millions and millions of dollars to retain their employees, that the second those incentives are gone, they're now cutting their employees, they're not cutting jobs, without looking into all of the other ways that you can streamline expenses and costs in a business. Because here's the deal, is that going to obviously have a positive change to their bottom line? Sure. But what if instead of them cutting 6%, 13%, 11%, 3%, all of these jobs, what if they just ask their entire workforce to take a small reduction, right? Like Dell added $600 million because they cut that much in jobs. Let's say on average, the 6,000 jobs that Dell cut, let's say they're on average 100,000, right? I'm sure there's many way less and there's probably some that are more. But we'll just say with benefits, their entire package averages to 100,000 for math. When you take that times the 6,000 jobs, they basically cut $600 million from their expenses. Now, what if they could have achieved the same thing by either finding another way to streamline expenses, or if it had to come from payroll, what if you went to the leadership team? What if you looked at doing a certain percentage across the board for everybody that was on payroll? And I think that that's the thing. I think that that's because it's such an expensive thing that most people move to that on their P&L. But here are the things, the unforeseen costs. When you cut jobs, especially people that have been with your company for a long time, it's not just the money that you get back. Those people actually take things with them, right? They have knowledge of the company. They understand the workings of the company. They, maybe get severance and have benefits for months after they're laid off, which also adds to the expense of letting them go. So it's not always a dollar for dollar where they just reduce their expenses. Now, you may be thinking, what does this mean for me? Well, hopefully you're not one of the unfortunate people that lost your job from one of these tech companies. What I do think it could mean for you is, how can you make 2023 your year of efficiency? What could you do to streamline your own budget, whether you have a business or this is in your personal finances? How can you minimize expenses, right? Like I talked about on another media interview, of really going through line by line your expense reports if you have a business, or your personal checking account and credit card statements if you don't have a business, and seeing how can you reduce your expenses by just 10%, maybe 15%. What could you cut out? Could you make your Starbucks at home and spend 50 cents on coffee instead of $5? Can you maybe rent out one of your spaces that you're not using anymore, whether it's your backyard that you have a pool, or a garage space, or, a spot in your home that maybe you're not using? How can you minimize expenses? Even if you never want to do any of those things, it's worth the conversation to see, how could I get really lean and efficient this year and make 2023 my year of efficiency? Because like business, personal finance is super simple, right? We either increase our revenue or our income, or we decrease expenses. But the important part to remember is, it's not just what you make. It's what you keep, but it's also what you do with it. So my personal opinion, if you don't have a business, here's what I would be doing to streamline my expenses. Number one, I would make sure that before I came into any uncertainty, which is probably what's going to continue to happen in this year, that I would have a safe fallback fund in place. I would have at least 3-6 months saved outside of my investments, outside of my personal checking account, in a very safe, secure place, whether that's a high yield savings account or a flex CD that is just there getting a little bit of interest, but you aren't tempted to spend it mixed in with all of your other income. Number two, I'd be looking at ways that I could diversify my investments to maybe something that's a little more recession proof, whether that was treasuries, mortgage-backed securities, or looking into individual stocks that typically do really well during economic downturns. Think when money starts to dry up, people don't have luxuries to do certain things, but they still got to eat, right? They still got to do certain things. They still need their medicine. They still need their prescription drugs. So some of the recession-proof stocks that we've seen that have held the test of time are not just big box stores, but also big pharma. Also things like utilities, because people are maybe staying home more and they're not going out as much. So those are some more individual things to look at. And of course, I can get into a whole other episode about boring businesses and how most of them are actually recession-proof, but I think that's for another time. And the only way to really do this is to really get to know what you're spending, right? The way that Meta and Dell and Amazon, everybody cut their jobs is because they saw what their revenue was and they saw how much they actually were spending. So you, as an individual or as a small business owner, really have to get clear what, profit you're making on those services, what your expenses really are, so that you can get lean and make this your year of efficiency. If you have a business, I won't go through all of them that I would be doing. Maybe we do that on another podcast as well. But I will tell you this one thing. If you haven't ever done this, take a look at all of your customers. Every single dollar that you have coming in, you have to do this in your CRM or your POS system, and take a look at all of your customers and their profitability. And if you don't have service-based, maybe you have products, this would be your products. What products are most profitable to you? The way that you get lean in business is by identifying the services or the products that you're selling, which have the most profitability, and how are you able to double down on those items or those services. And if you are working face-to-face with a customer and you have clients, if you have 20% of those customers that are maybe draining your bottom line and aren't, the most profitable, or maybe they take up the most time, or maybe they just suck the living life out of you, figuring out how much revenue comes from that bottom 20%, or that product that's not really profitable, or that service that is just taking far too much time to give, and find out ways that you can then flip that and take that revenue and make it more profitable or cut those products and services. Look, when we all break this down to like a big corporation like Walmart, right? They only have winners on their shelves. Things that don't sell, things that aren't as profitable, they're kicking out and bringing new things in order to maintain profitability and increase sales. The exact same thing has to happen in your small business if you have one. But regardless if we're talking personal finances or business, making 2023 your year of efficiency can really set you up to be more successful. Because like I always said, it's not what you do in good times, it's really what you do in economic downturns that can set you up to really create more wealth more quickly and have you sustain it for the long term. All right, guys, thanks so much for tuning in to this short episode. Hope to see you next time on the show. And until we're back, I hope you keep investing, keep focusing on these tactics of what you need to do to build wealth, not just now in your family, but for generations to come. We'll see you soon.